Industry Insider convention.
They didn't invite us.
They did not invite us.
We're, a 6 month, less than that old podcast.
They probably just didn't have our mailing address. I'll make sure to clear that up.
Happy New Comic Book Day, geeks, and welcome to issue 15 of the Script Heroes podcast.
The show where we bring you comic news, book reviews, and industry blues. My name is Joseph Jasonowski, and I'm the writer of Janitor Hero, Cunning Carly, and the Cryptoverse.
And I'm Katie Markham, scripter of the Rusty Robot Country Club and ghostwriter extraordinaire.
The polls we're going to be talking about this week are Ultimate Spider-Man number 2, Titans number 8, Zorro Man of the Dead number 2, Lotus Land number 4, and the Six Fingers number 1.
That's right, and in our back issue review this week, we're going to tackle Fantastic Four by Waid and Wieringo, the first Ultimate Collection.
And if you enjoy any of this episode, you can follow the pod on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, all at the handle Script Heroes Pod, where you can find my personal socials at JJAZ1111.
And I'm on all socials at Katie Markham Pro.
Now, onto the news. Okay, we have a bunch of news this week, mainly spinning out of the ComicsPRO Industry Insider convention.
They didn't invite us.
They did not invite us.
We're, a 6 month, less than that old podcast.
Yeah, we've been working in the industry for years, and we still don't get invited.
That's
right? Very rude.
Next year.
Next year. Yeah. They probably just didn't have our mailing address. I'll make sure to clear that up. That makes sense. Maybe that was our fault. We'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But this one's quite exciting. We have talked a little bit about Oni's kind of pushes to do more American kind of comics over the past few months. A lot of that revolving around a man named Cullen Bunn. This is another big step toward that direction, also involving a man named Cullen Bunn. But Oni
Same man.
is... Yes. No, different man named Cullen Bunn. But Oni is bringing back EC Comics in a new line. And they have some heavy hitters associated with this. Writers Jason Aaron, Brian Azzarello, Rodney Barnes, Carino Becco, Cullen Bunn, Christopher Cantwell, Cecil Costello, Chris Conan, Joshua Hale, Philic, Jay Hoffman, Jeff Jensen, Matt Kint, Sean Lewis, Stephanie Phillips, Jay Steffens, Zach Thompson, Ben H., artists Kano, Peter Cruz, Leo Max, Malachi Ward, Dustin Weaver, and covers from Lee Bermejo, Greg Smallwood, J.H. Williams, and so many more that will be revealed in the coming months.
What a huge amount of talent, both in terms of scope of talent and just number of talented people.
Yeah.
What I saw in passing was that they had only announced 2 books, though. So with
I didn't know they'd announced any books. Yeah.
I'm bringing the news.
You're bringing the news, apparently.
Oh, geez, too bad I didn't prepare for this. I didn't save the tweet or anything. Yeah, I thought I saw that they.
I see them. Yeah, Epitaphs and Cruel Universe, which is a weird couple to start. I feel like EC has bigger named, known anthology titles than those, but
it could be one, either a push to get these other titles better known, or what I think is kind of likely is that they might start re-releasing older EC titles, so they kind of re-enter.
Give us Impact 1 again.
Exactly, yes.
I've been trying to get a copy of Impact 1 for years now, but they pop up every couple months on eBay, and then sometimes if they're in nice condition go for way too much money. But I'll have one eventually.
There you go. Yeah, my bet would be that they're going to start doing facsimile releases of the older books to be remember who we are? We're cool.
Yeah. No, this is huge though. Horror is still an interesting genre in comics. It feels like sometimes people dip their toes in, but it's not really something that's super prevalent. Bits and pieces here. This is now going to be clearly a very large line dedicated pretty much entirely to horror, which is awesome.
It is. And I mean, that's big moves from Oni yet again, because was it
Yeah, we just
Oni
keep
who
talking
was
about how
teaming
much
up
they
with
keep.
Elijah Wood for the like Supernatural line as
Yeah,
well?
yeah. So
Yeah.
like, Oni is just continually like pressing into American comics, particularly with like horror and supernatural.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Good way to carve out a niche. I'm here
Right.
for it. Cullen Bunn's involved in a lot of it, so I'm excited for it. Jason Aaron's involved in this. Hell yeah! Very exciting.
Yeah, this is awesome news. I'm generally a pretty big wimp about horror, but I will happily support this initiative and give myself nightmares.
Yeah, but we spoke a little bit about Jason Aaron here, so let's transition into a little bit of news for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Jason Aaron.
Let's do it.
So, continuing on our train of big news from this Insider event, the IDW has announced a ton of Ninja Turtles news for the 40th anniversary this year.
Yes, I mean, it's a big one.
It's a big one. But kind of title, chief among these, the big one that they have been kind of, advertising is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Black, White, and Green. A new monthly anthology title coming out through IDW with some names like Declan Shelby, Paulina Gocha, Javier Rodriguez, Jacques, and more. Before we talk about that, I'm just going to hit on all of the other things announced. We had talked a little bit about a Night Watcher, book, a story in Free Comic Book Day. It has now been announced that following that will be a series from writer Junie Ba, who we talked about a little bit last week for The Boy Wonder, and artist Pharaoh P, who did Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Stranger Things crossover. Fantastic art. Then there's been announced a one-shot Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Usagi Saturday Morning Adventures, which will be a 40-page one-shot. Then a new series to go alongside the mainline book that will be written by Jason Aaron sees the return of Tom Waltz and Sophie Campbell to the main IDW universe that, they helped build. And this will be focused on, it's called Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Nation, and it'll be focused on the mutant non-turtle characters in the world. If you're familiar at all with the run, I know you're not super, Katie, but Tom Waltz and Sophie Campbell have maybe created more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters than anyone outside of Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird. There are just a ton of characters these two created, and it'll be very exciting to see them, continue it. And finally, as I try to do all of this without taking a breath, there is a one-shot Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Alpha #1. This is going to have a, I think, 32-page story from Tom Waltz and Gavin Smith. Gavin Smith, by the way, one of my favorite Ninja Turtles artists. So phenomenal. And a 10-page story from Jason Aaron and Chris Burnham. So basically a little book that's going to help bridge into those two series. That's all the books they announced. It's a lot.
That's a lot. I mean, you being our resident shellhead.
Yes.
I know that you just talked a long time, but I feel like your thoughts are certainly at the forefront of my thoughts. What do you think?
I have so many thoughts. Saturday Morning Adventures has been awesome, so Usagi crossover there is just more good stuff, but I don't think that's something that, has too much to talk about now. The three things I really want to talk about are, we'll end with the biggest one, so we'll go in order. The first one I would talk about is Night Watcher. You remember how excited I was just for Night Watcher to be reintroduced in a little Free Comic Book Day book.
Because Night Watcher was previously the identity, like it was a secret vigilante identity of Raphael, right?
Yes. But he had taken it on from... Probably not. It'll probably be the man who he had taken on the identity of, whose name is now.
Watcher.
Yeah. But yeah, haven't seen him since the 2007 movie and the prequel comics to the 2007 movie. So, 16, 17 years. This is awesome. So excited for that. But we talked a lot about that in the, previous episode. I gotta talk about Tom Waltz returning to the main Ninja Turtles universe. Obviously, he's done Last Ronin.
For those who don't know, Jay is the biggest devotee of Tom Waltz's Ninja Turtles run.
I love Tom Waltz's work so much. His main Ninja Turtles run, The Last Ronin, all fantastic stuff. Last Run and Lost Years can go on, but seeing him return now, so instead of getting 6 Tom Waltz Ninja Turtle issues a year through whatever Last Ronin miniseries is coming out, we will be getting hopefully 12 plus the Last Ronin books. It's awesome. It's exciting. Getting to see him play with all these characters besides the main Ninja Turtles too. Good stuff. Exciting. Seeing Sophie Campbell join him on this. Awesome. Great stuff all the way around. But don't want to waste too much time there. I'm sorry, Mr. Waltz. Great work. But I want to talk about this anthology book because I think that's what everybody wants to talk about. Because one, black, white, and green, just amazing. Cool. Ninja Turtles in black and white, always great, and now green too. Very cool. And just the great idea it is to do a monthly Ninja Turtles anthology. There's so many stories to tell. There's so many continuities that exist. There's so many different angles to take the Ninja Turtles, so many different characters. An anthology book just feels like such a home run, and I am so jealous of all the creators that get to contribute to this, because I would want nothing more in my life than to do a story in one of these books.
That is so fair. I mean, I am such a fan of, like, limited color palette books. Like, black and white isn't typically my thing, but, like, black, white, and red, Superman red and blue, I just think there was that Wonder Woman that was like black, white, and gold. I think those are so cool, especially in like a limited format as well, where you can be really just so intentional with that limited color use. I am super excited to dive into that one because I'm assuming that we're going to be adding so many Turtles books to the pod.
I hope so. That reminds me, you need to pick up the Source book that came out this week, because that's going to catch you up for when we jump on at the
Here's
new.
Here's the thing. I am relying on before these books start coming out, you choosing for a back issue review some essential bit of Turtle. Okay.
We'll read the volume 1 for sure. It's so freaking good. I mean, then there's a lot of good volumes in there. We probably have to do a decent amount with the emergence of Jenica, because otherwise you're going to be like, why are there 5 Ninja Turtles and not 4? So,
well, I don't know how much time you have, but if you're already on, 148 of Turtles, you better start picking these.
I should. Well, I'm not on 148. They're on 148. I'm in the 120s right now. We're charging back.
He's playing catch-up.
I'm playing catch-up, but yeah. So excited for this. So many of these I'm sure we'll be covering on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, they'll be added to the pull list, which is a perfect transition to go to the pull list.
We still have DC news, but yeah.
Sure. You're right.
Okay, so we have a bunch of new announcements from DC, but I think the place to start is finally the reveal of what this Trinity of Evil is. We've talked about it before. It's finally been revealed what this event is. So let's get into it without further ado. Oh, and announce the team on it. I don't know if Katie has seen the team on it, but she's going to be very excited. Okay, so throughout the dawn of DC, Amanda Waller's combination of pure ruthlessness and dangerous alliances has placed her in the precipice of fulfilling her pledge, the elimination of all metahuman abilities planet-wide. This summer, her plans take a major step forward with Absolute Power, DC's summer blockbuster, helmed by the critically acclaimed duo of writer Mark Waid and artist Dan Mora. This 4-issue miniseries launches July 2nd and shows how Waller will use the strategic and military might of Failsafe and the otherworldly technology of Brainiac Queen to steal all metahuman abilities from every superhero and supervillain around the globe. A threat so dire, it will take the combined efforts of Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and the superheroes of the DC universe to defeat it. So essentially, we're getting a Trinity event.
I was going to say, we're getting a Trinity event, which is great, because I love the Titans. I would die for the Titans. It's weird not having a Justice League, and it's nice to at least have the Trinity coming together for some sort of big team up. But Mark Waid and Dan Mora, oh my god! I have eaten up every series they've been doing together, except for Shazam, but I've been meaning to.
Shazam is very fun.
I am so thrilled about this, especially because I've been having a lot of doubts about Amanda Waller's vibes lately. I
About the
love
Trinity
Tom
of Evil in
Taylor,
general.
right? I love Tom Taylor, but it hasn't been great on like a kind of DC universe wide scale.
Yeah, fully
And I
agree.
mean, you're bringing in Mark Waid. He
Yeah,
cannot do anything except hit it out of the park.
fully agreed. Gonna drop the next little bit of news that ties
Yes.
into this is that before that 4-issue miniseries, there's going to be a free comic book day Absolute Power special, which is going to have it's going to be a 32-page comic that has a 12-page story by Mark Waid and Michael Janin, which is going to be a recap of the events leading up to Absolute Power. So if you haven't read every single DC book, this is going to kind of catch you up. And then there's going to be
also a variant cover by Dan Mora. I did see that.
nice. And then there's going to be Absolute Power Ground Zero, which is going to be a prelude one-shot book leading into it. So essentially, it sounded like it's going to be 6 books total. The free comic book day book, which is kind of a catch-up, a prelude, and then the 4-issue miniseries. So, yeah, very exciting.
Well,
Mark Waid's on all of it.
Dan
Dan Moore's on most of it. Very exciting.
Love that. What else did we hear from DC?
Yeah. Okay, so a little while ago, we talked about DC making these, like, entry-level little, evergreen title reprinting books. Yeah. Seems DC is taking another step in trying to create low-priced books for new readers. This is going to be called DC's Finest, a line of comprehensive collections of the most in-demand periods, genres, and characters from across DC history. They are affordably priced, large-size paperback collections starting at $35, and they seem to be like big histories of some of the biggest characters. There is, of course, a Batman book, a Wonder Woman book, a Superman book, a Flash book, and a Catwoman book. I'm sorry, that one was weird to me, so I had to do it like that. I was like, I feel like that's Green Lantern slot right there.
I was
not gonna lie, felt like that was Green Lantern slot.
Like we have our little Justice League building out there, and then no Green Lantern and no Aquaman, which also feels like a weird one. Like, I know that
I'm seeing the years on
but...
these for the first time too. Yeah, I've seen the years on these for the first time too, which is a little weird. The Superman years are what you'd expect, 38, 40, beginning of Superman. Flash years, what you expect, 56, 61, beginning of Silver Age Flash. Batman is 86 and 87, which is interesting. Catwoman is 88 to 94. Interesting. Still a classic
I think that
story.
Makes sense.
Wonder Woman is 2007 to 2009. I'm sorry, I just saw this right now, and I'm losing it.
So, I have not read that period of Wonder Woman. I will be the first to admit. I read a bit of her New 52, and I've read some sporadic, 90s and before stuff, just as my wonderful aunt, hi Aunt Jo, has given me single issues, because we both love Wonder Woman.
It's Gail Simone's run. I'm reading the description now.
Yeah, I love Gail Simone. I have not read her Wonder Woman run, but maybe that is a good thing. I would think that for this, they would be very particular about what eras they are picking, and I'm not gonna lie, you kind of lost me a little bit when they did Catwoman. I was like, oh, I don't know that they're really, shooting for the stars on this, but I don't know. This will be a good way for me, as someone who has not read Gail Simone's Wonder Woman, to do so. So maybe this working.
I thought this was all meant to be classic stuff, and then a lot of them just pushed further and further because the Superman 38 to 40 and the Flash 56 to 61. That's what I thought this was gonna be. I
think classic is hard to put a pin on. I can see calling the Batman one classic Batman. That's a very
it's gonna be year one and that kind of stuff. So that's fair.
And I suppose
2007 is not
Catwoman
classic.
expert. I have no idea how much of
I'm just guessing
classic
that's where she
Catwoman.
probably had her first miniseries, if I had to guess.
I
Like,
think she had a
like
really
probably the
long
first
series.
time.
Like I think she had a series that started in the '90s
Oh,
and
yeah.
went like into the aughts. But
Yeah, actually, it says it's the first year of the ongoing. But yeah, Wonder Woman feels weird, especially when like the George Perez runs like right there is the classic Wonder Woman run that most people point to. So, little weird.
a
To
little
go to
weird.
2007 for a classics collection. I have no problem with Gail Simone's thing getting a collection. I'm sure it has a collection. Just feels like an odd choice for the classics line.
Right.
But
But I guess if they're trying to choose spots where they want characters to really shine, perhaps a having the two female-led books be a bit more modern might be a safe call.
So like you didn't have to go super old, but like the
Right, but I
Catwoman one
mean,
feels more like it's in the classics era. Like
yeah, but I mean,
once you
even
break that
looking-
2007 barrier, I'm like I don't know if I buy that that's classics anymore. Like that's modern. I mean, I get that we're like 15 years away from 2009. I get that. I understand how time works, but my brain will not see anything post 2000 as classic.
That's fair. I get where you're coming from on that, but yeah, I think that at the very least, it'll be interesting to see what DC has picked as these eras and see kind of
we have one last little bit of news, which we had kind of, I think, circled at some point the idea that it was kind of maybe coming, but DC has kind of put out some more books that are going to be existing in the new Elseworld line. Yeah. So we have Gotham by Gaslight: The Kryptonian Age by Andy Diggle and Leonardo Fernandez. Dark Knights of Steel All Winter #1 by Jay Kristoff and Terso Cons. DC vs. Vampires World War V by Matthew Rosenberg and Otto Schmidt. Batman the Barbarian by Greg Smallwood, which is kind of interesting. Green Lantern Dark, which has been announced before, we kind of talked about, Tate Bromwell and Werther Del Adera. And Batman Nightfire 1 by Claymont.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of Dark Knights of Steel and DC vs. Vampires. Like, I pulled those entire Maxi series. I don't know how much I needed spin-offs of them, but I'm here for it. Why not? I'm a little worried because Gotham by Gaslight is one of my favorite little little pockets. I
don't know if you mentioned on the pod. You've definitely mentioned it to me on numerous occasions.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what they're going for with the Kryptonian era. Like, because it's already an era, Gotham by Gaslight.
The Kryptonian Age.
Oh, Kryptonian Age.
Yeah.
I'm tentatively excited though. Any chance to see beloved characters in just like period appropriate outfits, I love.
I think I'm like looking at what I think is a cover for Batman the Barbarian, and it's man.
I mean, it's
nice.
Greg Smallwood. We've talked about Human Target together, and Greg Smallwood's art is the part of it that did not miss.
Greg Smallwood's just one of the best, I think, in the industry right now. So I'm gonna be pushing for Batman the Barbarian as well as Green Lantern Dark to end up on this podcast. So
I mean, can guarantee Batman the Barbarian. Probably also Green Lantern.
Nice. We'll talk. Anyway,
lots to talk about.
Possibly the longest news segment we have ever done.
Yes.
So, without further ado, let's move into the polls.
Alright, gang, we have quite the poll list for you this week. We've got Ultimate Spider-Man, #2, Titans, #8, Lotus Land, #4, the Six Fingers, #1, the tie-in to the One Hand, and Zorro, Man of the Dead, #2. But that, of course, is not all we picked up this week. Jaybird, what else did you get?
Yeah, I also got Cobra Commander #2, which has just the sickest cover. Daredevil #6, The End of Firepower, Firepower #30, Green Lantern War Journal number 6, The Incredible Hulk number 9, Interstellar Dust number 3, Invasive number 3, and Nightwing 111. What did you get, Katie?
I also got Batman 144. I think that's the one that came out this week. Haunted House Love Story number 4. I think that's the one that came out this week. And then at my home shop, I've got Nightwing, and I think World's Finest Batman Superman came out this week as well. Real quick, what is Firepower? I've never heard of it, even though it apparently went for 30 issues.
Oh, yeah, Firepower is Robert Kirkman's latest ongoing series. It's like this kind of fantastical martial arts story about a guy with fire powers, firepower.
Right up your alley.
Yeah. Very fun. Yeah, no, I mean, if it's made by Robert Kirkman, it's probably up my alley.
Right? But, made by Robert Kirkman and martial arts. It just feels right.
Right? It feels right.
But we are going to jump into things with Ultimate Spider-Man number 2. Ultimate Spider-Man number 2. Spider-Man faces his first supervillain, J. Jonah Jameson's quest to uncover who's really pulling the strings of this new Ultimate Universe leads to a shocking revelation. And New York City welcomes its newest hero, the Green Goblin. The writer here is Jonathan Hickman, who's done Avengers, Fantastic Four, and the X-Men. The artist is Marco Cicchetto, who's done Amazing Spider-Man, Daredevil, and Punisher. Colorist, Matt Wilson. Letterer, Corey Petit. Jay, we were quite delighted by issue 1, if I remember correctly.
Oh, I loved issue 1.
Loved issue 1. How are you feeling about issue 2?
I like this a lot, too. This is, it's interesting because when we talk about Titans, we'll talk about that. Like, I originally felt a little bit like we were going to have a similar problem like what Titans has had throughout its run of, like, not enough really happening in the individual issue compared to, like, the overarching plot. But then this issue just kind of slid in this little shocker plot line, which worked really, really well to give me enough in this issue in addition to the building of the future stuff with, Ben and J. Jonah, which is just such good interaction. I mean, Jonathan Hickman is just a fantastic dialogue writer. Like, dialogue is so strong in this. The captions are so strong. Like, I had literally, because it was so good, I had seen it on Twitter before I even read the book. But, like, the monologue of Peter being like, if I try to do what I should be doing 20 years ago, I'll always be 20 years behind. Like, just such good, insightful stuff, right? Like, love that. Such a good balance of setup and stuff in this story. I love Peter kind of, like, actually getting comeuppance for being a little bit too trusting. Like, it's a nice juxtaposition of, like, instead of everything just going the super nice hero's way, it's like, no, sometimes the villain's just going to knock you on your ass because you're being a dumbass.
And it was so funny, too. Both times.
The fact that it landed so well the second time is a testament to how well this was done.
The fact that it landed better the second time.
Yeah!
Oh my gosh. I feel like that's something that I really wanted to commend this book on, is just being such funny Spider-Man. Like, we read, Bendis's Ultimate Spider-Man?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't like Peter at all there. I didn't think it was funny at all, which is not, like, a requirement for Spider-Man, but it feels like a kind of hallmark of Spider-Man. It's like he's going to be quippy, he's going to, be a little funny. This is so well done. All of the comedic timing in the book is really well done, especially those two shocker interactions. Yeah. And like you said, the dialogue is so great between characters. Like, obviously, Jonah and Ben have a really great relationship. They're super silly together, but also, moving the plot along. But the one that I loved so much was the way that Peter interacts with May, his daughter.
Yeah.
They're so cute.
I don't want to get too into the spoilery side of that, same. It's so good.
It's so cute, and it feels so, real. And I love that the introduction of Spider-Man into Peter's life here doesn't, make him miserable. Because that's what I was worried about. I was like, oh, we're seeing a real happy Peter. We're seeing Peter with a family, and, things are going pretty well.
I don't mind misery, but I do agree with you.
Yeah. It's nice that his life isn't ruined by becoming Spider-Man.
I just want to hit on, because I always love a good, news debate. There's such a good little, bit of like the Spider-Man, menace, or
Right.
like thing in the through line with like Fisk like pulling the strings from behind and the people pulling the strings behind him, and like the Ben and uh
Jonah.
J. Jonah like debating on like, why is this on the front cover but then Goblin isn't, and like there's this cool thing, and then Goblin like being like, is Goblin, I don't want to get to it, but it's just very good with the way they're playing with the newspaper as it being a central theme.
Super agree.
Yeah.
And I'm also a fan of that in that I prefer Peter as a photographer to, like, I don't know, a lab boy. I think that it's much more charming for him to be this, like, kind of artist archetype instead of this scientist archetype. It's just my preference for Peter. But yeah, I like this so much. Are you ready to jump into ratings?
I am. I'll start us off here. I gave this an 8 out of 10. I thought this was a really solid issue. It takes just a little bit to pick up. The first few pages, maybe the first 6 pages, whatever, a little slow, as it's just kind of like Spider-Man being like, I am Spider-Man now, so fair enough. But then once we get into it, it really gets good. So I'm going to give this a strong 8 out of 10. And yeah, I'll give this a pull list rack. I think this is jump onable enough, if jump onable is a word.
It's not, but it's understandable. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. I really like this. I had a few gripes with the first issue, specifically that there wasn't enough like Spider-Man action, and we get to see Peter as Spider-Man doing Spider-Man things, and it's really well done.
In a black
Spider-Man
suit, by the way.
Right. I'm curious to see what they end up doing with the suit.
And
obviously
if I can
on the
gripe
covers and such, the suit looks a bit different.
That's what I was going to say. If I can gripe for just a second, I get it's about selling comics, but reflect the stuff that's in your book, man. Like the fact that both of the first 2 issues have like a traditional Spider-Man suit doesn't exist in the book. I don't love that. The black suit's iconic enough and cool enough that you can put it there.
I mean, the thing is, it's not even really the black suit. It's a completely black suit. It doesn't have the spider on it at all.
Yes, it doesn't have the white logo.
I think that it's clearly meant to be like, he hasn't done anything with the suit yet. Like, this is just default skin armor. I would also call this a pull list rec for sure. I think that this is a really easy place to jump in because issue 1 was a lot of like preamble.
Agreed. Do we want to scoot over to Titans?
Let's boom tube over.
Titans number 8. Can the team hold the world together post Beast World? The Titans are not the same heroes they were when Beast World began. Arguable. Can this team hold the world together after everything they've been through? Can these friends unite against strengthening enemies hell-bent on tearing them apart? Or will they crumble in the face of a new world order? Writer is, as always, Tom Taylor. Injustice, Nightwing, and Superman. We have a new artist, Steven Segovia, The Scorched, Action Comics, Batman, colorist Annette Kwok, and letterer Wes Abbott. Katie, we've not been loving Titans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's your prompt.
It's not doing it for me. It feels like nothing is happening in these books, which is an absurd thing to feel at issue 8. Because at first,
it was fun when we were talking about it in like issue 2 or 3. It was like, it'll come.
Exactly. Because I think in issues 2 and 1, 2, and 3, it's like, okay, they're building to Beast World. And then during Beast World, we almost had cool stuff. But then the Starfire plot with her, former bodyguard impersonating Brother Eternity went nowhere. And we got nothing with that, even though that seemed like a really cool Starfire plot to be happening. And then we got that super underwhelming Raven bait and switch where her, demon side has captured her regular Rachel Roth side. And we're seeing the start of that here, but it still feels like nothing. And even Trigon addresses that nothing is happening. He's like, daughter, why are you not doing anything?
They've landed on a structure for this series that is just awful, which is important things happen in the first 3 pages and the last 3 pages, and in the middle there's a random side quest mission that doesn't matter.
And
that
here's the
isn't
thing.
even like interesting within itself. It's not them like
Exactly.
fighting a villain of the week. It's them dealing with like environmental threats, or that, which like is a fun idea to be like, the heroes do this too, so you can see that they're good people. But it doesn't make for an exciting comic book. There's a reason that's not usually what superheroes do.
Yeah, and like, exactly, you hit it right on the head there. There's a reason that it's not fun to watch superheroes fight a hurricane. I mean, we basically just had Cyborg boom tubing people out, and it's like, okay, the flying heroes, go ahead and grab people from the rooftops. There was this frankly horrible little exchange where clearly Tom Taylor, with all the love of my heart, I love your Nightwing work so much. Tom Taylor has Donna be like, the only line she gets essentially in helping with this threat is, oh, make sure you don't open a boom tube underwater. Like, of course. Why is that? It just feels like none of their skills are being used.
Yeah.
Except for like Tempest, but in that case, why isn't Tempest protecting more? You know,
why isn't he then like a featured character? Like he felt
exactly.
like a side character,
He's
despite being the most important.
A dramatic line reveal more than anything.
Yeah.
This has just been so disappointing. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have a whole lot more to say about it. I
don't either.
May even suggest that we stop talking about Titans on the pod just because nothing's happening now.
Yeah, honestly, it's disappointing in every way, shape, and form. That's where I am with it. Like, you got to do more. You know, you can't just have them.
Something.
You know, like they're protecting people. It's like, okay, that's good, that's nice. It makes me like the characters. Doesn't make me interested in the book. You know.
Exactly.
Like, look at Ultimate Spidey with at least like Shocker being the villain of the week. Like, that was the little nothing of the week, but it was entertaining because he was fighting a villain. This was a hurricane in a static medium.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it.
Why don't you rate it so that we don't just sit here?
I was gonna say I really don't have much else to say.
Yeah.
Perhaps surprisingly, from what I was just saying, I did give it a 6 out of 10. If I didn't like the new artist so much, it probably would be like a 5 or even maybe a 4 out of 10. But I like this new art. I like this team. I like the teams that have been on this book. I just don't understand why nothing is happening in the book.
Yeah. Fully agree. Like I said, I think it's just because they box themselves into this format that they've decided on of like little bit of plot happen at the beginning and end, which are the most interesting thing, and then nothing happens for the meat of the book. Anyway, I also give it a 6 out of 10. Would not give it a poll list rec. I'm ready to move on.
Let's go to Lotus Land.
Let's do it.
Lotus Land number 4. As he works to unravel the mystery of who attacked him and why, Benny pays a visit to a club in Gastown where the Twin, a man with the power to induce hallucinations, plies his trade. But when his interest in the drowning girl puts him on the bad side of a worse crowd, he finds himself in the clutches of an underworld power broker with a shocking agenda. The writer here, Darcy Van Polgeest, has done Critical Role, The Tales of Xandria, The Bright Queen, and Little Bird. The artist is Chad Felipe, who's worked on Nightwing, Stranger Things, and Superman. The colorist is Patricio Del Peche, and the letterer is Nate Picos of Blambot. Jay, how do you feel about Lotus Land numero 4?
I liked it. I feel like things are starting to come together a little bit here. And that's always a nice thing. I felt like this was definitely a step in the correct direction. The art somehow just feels a lot like I've always thought the art was good. It feels a lot better to like it feels like it went from good to great in this issue, which is
hear that.
Awesome. I like the dialogue a lot. There's like it's the Twin is the name of the character. Like him like induce hallucinations. So there's such a cool sequence with that. This really kind of pulled me back, and I was starting to scoot out a little bit. This issue really made me go like, okay, no, this is a fun book. This is a good book, and I'm really enjoying it from this issue.
I definitely agree with that. I think that the mystery of it is so intriguing. I love the element of the like little what they call it? It's not the academy, but there's like essentially a place,
the school for like the meta. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But less so a nice Charles Xavier Academy, and more so like I don't know, a Stranger Things.
It's a Fraser View.
Yeah, Fraser View. I love that aspect of it.
I
I
love that so
really
much.
like the bit of backstory we got for the twin. I mean, his name is the twin, and his twin like disappeared, and I'm like, that is a really cool concept. I like that so much. I feel like there's just all of these awesome pieces in this book, and I really, really enjoy the way that they are all coming together. My one
Yeah.
gripe
No. Yeah.
is that it's a really good mystery, and I like that a lot. I do think there is an element in a month to month release where you have to account a bit for that gap, because there are a lot of things where I struggle to remember what is like mystery and what is something that I have forgotten. Because it's been,
Fully agree.
2 months since I read issue 2 and it was something that was revealed there.
Yeah.
So I think that there could be a bit more, not like an extreme amount of hand holding, but I feel like there's no hand holding at the moment.
No, I fully agree. There's moments where I'm like quite confused, and sometimes I'm debating if I'm supposed to be confused or not.
Exactly.
Like, not even necessarily if I've forgotten things, but if they just aren't being clear enough.
Right.
Like I have a lot of debate over like sometimes how much of this book is either I don't understand the book doesn't want me to understand, or it's a mystery or whatever. So yeah, it's a little bit of a confusing book. I felt this issue was a little bit better in that than some of the previous issues. It still has it, but that's why I like this one a little bit more. But yeah, no, I fully agree with you. I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. I'm so invested in this book, in this plot, and in these characters. I know I was a little shaky on Benny at first, but I've really come around on him. And I am excited to get a little movement on what we've seen in the last few pages of, I think, basically all the previous 3 issues, where we have the plot of Benny's son happening. I'm excited to have a little bit more movement going on that, because that's obviously Benny's motivation, and messing with Benny's motivation is a great way to kind of shake his character up a bit. I'm very excited to see where they go with that.
Fully agree. Do you want to hit on anything else before we get into ratings? And
I am good to go. I can start it off for us.
Okay.
I gave issue 4 a 7 out of 10. I think that it's really, really a good time. I think the art is really, really good, but I did feel quite lost a few times in this issue.
Yeah, it's a week of agreement here. I gave this a 7 out of 10 as well. I want to specify that I think in no way should you ever attempt to read a single issue of Lotus Land if you have not read it in order. I think that it will be one of the most disorienting and confusing experiences of your life. So please read Lotus Land in order if you are going to read it.
Exactly. The lack of pull list rec is not because it's not a great series. It's because it's a mystery. You can't jump into the middle of a mystery.
No, don't do it.
But speaking of mysteries, next up on our list
let's move into 6 Fingers.
Let's do it.
6 Fingers number 1. Neo-Novena archaeology student Johannes Vale has been so very in control of his life, but when he commits a brutal murder using the MO of a historic and notorious serial killer, everything begins to spiral out of control, primarily as Johannes doesn't remember doing it. What follows is a deadly cat-and-mouse game as Johannes seeks refuge in the rain-soaked streets of Neo-Novena. He will stop at nothing to unravel the secrets and ciphers of what he did and why he did it, but each revelation only leads further into the dark heart of his future metropolis and Johan's own heartbroken soul. The writer is Dan Waiters, Detective Comics, Cowboy Bebop, The Sandman Universe. Artist is Summit Kumar, Man-Bat, Justice League, The Savage Shores. The colorist is Lee Lowridge, and the letterer is Aditya Badikar. Katie, you love the one hand.
I did.
How do you feel about 6 Fingers?
I like this a lot. I'm a little bummed with how much that summary gives away, because I think that one of the coolest things about this book, and because the summary gives it away, I'll give it away too, is the revelation at the very end of the book that Johannes doesn't know that he committed this murder. So I thought that when we were getting this companion book, that we were going to see like a mastermind criminal, working against the detective from the one hand, but instead we have this neurotic, obviously some sort of psychotic student, archaeology student, academic, trying to essentially solve the murder he committed, as well as he tries to figure out why he did it and what this cipher means. I am really excited that these books are coming out in tandem. I know that you were a little hesitant about the kind of dual release format, but
I was.
It's really exciting to me personally, and I'm a big fan. I like this one quite a bit as well.
Yeah, I thought The One Hand was fine. I'm not a big detective guy. I'm not a big, noir guy. I love this issue so freaking much. This is so much more my style of comic book. I'm not really big into like following a detective around while he puts pieces together. Meanwhile, getting really invested in somebody's world and then having it turn on its head and learning about the characters. And this does such a good job of even characters you meet for one or two scenes. Like, you immediately understand them and their relationship to Johann's. It's so good. There's so much of like this fun little turning on its head and intrigue and character. And I love this issue so ridiculously much. The art's phenomenal.
Right?
It's just really, really good.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about the just vibes of this series. I think that the cover art does a really good job of conveying those vibes. So you're really, when you see it on the rack, you're getting what you're picking up. Like, it's so rad. It feels so creative. In a very Lotus Land-esque manner, I feel like we've got a very rich world to explore. And we see Johann with this strange arrowhead, so we've got that kind of clue to work off of, where maybe this is something supernatural or alien because it's not materials that we've seen humans use before. There's just a lot of really interesting pieces on the board already. And I'm so excited to see this chess game battle it out.
And because there's so many different ones, like, you can start like picking your lane of like, is this something alien or whatever with this arrowhead? Is this because of all the toxic chemicals that he's been, kind of exposed to? Which, by the way, the illustrations of the pages of him in that suit, like wading through the waste, are some of the most beautiful comic book pages you will ever see in your life. So well illustrated, phenomenal. And then you also have the idea of like, okay, maybe he just had a psych break because he is somebody who's so, hyper-focused, and, the way that he breaks up with his girlfriend is so interesting, and there's a lot of really cool stuff in this issue. I love this so much. As somebody who, and maybe this is like the nice thing of the dueling series, is that they're not like the exact same vibe, so this is more up my alley. That is a little bit less up my alley, but...
Super fair. I think both are super well done, though. What would you rate the Six Fingers #1?
I give this a 9 out of 10. I thought this was phenomenal. There is the last couple pages aren't quite as strong as the rest of the issue up to that point to me. It just feels like it could have been done a little bit more. I don't know. They didn't land much. It feels like we get the reveal and then we get too many pages post-reveal. That makes sense of him just being like, what's going on? It doesn't distract from the issue as a whole, which is a little bit like that at the end there, but I really love this. This is a huge pull list rec for me. 9 out of 10. Amazing single issue.
Hell yeah, this is a pull list rec for me as well. I gave it an 8 out of 10. I liked it so, so much, and I am so thrilled to see where this is going. Speaking of books that we love so much, are you ready for Zorro, Man of the Dead?
Dos.
Zorro, Man of the Dead, #2. Don Quixote meets Narcos and Sean Gordon Murphy's Zorro, Man of the Dead. In this modern reimagining, the writer-artist behind DC Comics' Batman White Knight delivers a fresh take on the legendary swashbuckling hero. Zorro has returned! Well, kind of. Diego has shown that the spirit of Zorro flows through him and has left a trail of ne'er-do-wells in his wake. But now Rosa must try to save her brother, who believes he is the protector of La Vega, as El Rojo will certainly be hunting for the legendary Zorro now. But Diego isn't getting anywhere without Bandito! Hop in Rosa's El Camino and prepare for the next swashbuckling chapter in Sean Murphy's electric story of the Man in Black. As mentioned a couple times at the top, Sean Gordon Murphy is the writer-artist here. The plot holds Batman White Knight, Tokyo Ghost. The colorist is Simon Go, and the letterer is D.C. Hopkins. Jay, I feel like we both gave #1 like a 9 or a 9.5 or something.
I gave it a 9.5, I remember that.
I think I also gave it a 9.5.
Issues. Oh, yeah,
I think it was our highest, like, communal
Yes, it is
grade
easily our
ever.
highest communal. It's the only thing we've ever both given a 9.5 to, and neither of
What?
us have ever given a 10 to anything. So
It's hard to give something a 10, except for Nakara.
Yeah.
Issue 2.
Yes.
Dose, if you will.
Man, where do I want to start with this? I'll start with this. I had a similar problem to Ultimate Spider-Man where I felt like it took a little bit to get going. The first couple of pages were a little bit slow, which is fair.
Mhm.
It was building up supporting characters that end up being very important. I think it pays off well. So, like, I get it. It was just those first couple pages, I was like, wait, where's the book that the first issue was? Like, where's that book? And then it gets going, and I was like, oh, there's that
There
book.
it is.
This is really good. There's a phenomenal splash page in here of, like, Zorro, man, I'm trying to find it now. On the horse, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
So good. Diego, but I'm going to say Zorro because it's more fun that way.
And it's what he would want.
Every time, yeah, there's a lot of good situational humor with Diego, like, not understanding the world, you know? Because it's not, like, intention, like, the characters are taking themselves seriously, which I love, but it's just funny in the way that it comes off. It's just such a fun series. There's so much good build-up here for what's coming, and good character work, and just phenomenal action. Somebody should not be allowed to be this good at writing and illustrating, but
right?
man,
We say this all the time about
so
Shango Murphy. Oh my gosh, this man is so talented. I just, like you said, the action is so great, and the mix of, because Diego, my love, oh my gosh, he's using a sword against the literal cartel. So we have the, like, rad swashbuckling of Zorro with his rapier, but then we also have, like, the cool gunfight sequences as well. And I feel like gunfights can easily be pretty stale, but Shango Murphy does a good job of keeping them brief, like they should be. It's gunfire breaks out and someone is doing something. Like Trejo is getting away. Rosa is looking for Diego. There's something happening that isn't the gunfight, but the gunfight is happening around them. We also, like you said, get so much supporting cast in this book. Like, we had met the priest in our previous issue. We might have had some passing interactions with others, but we get such a, like, vibrant community in this issue as Diego, kind of gathers people. He inspires them and brings them.
yeah. What's the guy's name? It's
Concreto, I believe.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
love him
he's super
so much.
cool. I'm sorry, Cementerio.
Cementerio, yeah.
Yeah.
There's another interesting character. There's several interesting characters introduced here. I don't want to get into spoilers. The issue ender is phenomenal.
Yes.
Like, it's just, I really, really enjoyed this so much.
And one thing that I really, really enjoy about the dynamic of Rosa and Diego is that both of them are incredibly competent at what they are doing. So both of them are essentially right when they try to take charge. I feel like it's not an instance of, oh, Rosa's not, taking Diego seriously or whatever, because she doesn't, like, she understands that he's having weird delusions, but she's also not wrong to be worried about that, because he is fighting the cartel with a sword. But Diego also isn't, like, an incompetent boob doing this. Like, he's been training with his rapier for his entire life. He takes out multiple cars with his, like, acrobatics and sword and fox.
Well, I feel like that's the humor of it, is that basically she's sitting here like, no, stop doing this stuff because it's crazy and it's not going to work. And you as the artist, like, yeah, no, Diego, you're just a crazy guy with a sword. You're not Zorro. None of this going to work. But everything he says works out exactly how he says it. He's like, I'm going to recruit people. We're going to fight the cartel. She's like, nobody's going to join an idiot with a sword to fight the cartel. And then they all do. He shows up and they're like, yeah, let's do this. And she's like, what is wrong with all of you?
But I like that
so
doesn't come at the expense of Rosa's competence. Like, she's still this amazing driver. She's pretty handy with a gun. Like, it never feels like one of them is, like, the heel of the other, if that makes sense.
No, because the book takes them both very seriously. It makes things, like, situations are very funny, which is always why I say situational humor works so much better in comic books than, quips and jokes, because it just doesn't really pit characters against each other as much. Like, it just, the world feels very natural, everybody feels very justifiable, and then it's just like, but things are just funny and entertaining. And that's like, this book is fun, engaging, and entertaining. And like, that is all you should want out of a comic book.
Oh my gosh. And beautiful. Like, I know that we touched on it in terms of action, and I know that we're getting close to the end of our discussion. But Sean Gordon Murphy, so talented as a writer, and also his art just in general is so beautiful. There's this awesome page where they're looking at the Castillo where Diego grew up, and we see this shrine to Zorro, and there's just so much going on, and it's so gorgeous and so beautiful. And the fox is so cute. I don't mind there not being a dog if there's an adorable fox.
And like, he just so much confidence packing pages with panels when he needs to. Like, I want to say the like average panel count in this book's probably like 7 or 8. Like, it's very high, and then you'll get like your splashes and your big moment things. But especially in action sequences and stuff, like, you'll get these 8 panel pages so that everything that needs to happen can happen. And it works so well, and it helps keep this action feeling so energetic because there's so much going on in the page.
And even outside of the action scenes, he will pack a page with dialogue. Like, I just opened to a random page, and it is covered in white space. Like, there are so many bubbles, so much is being said, so much interaction is happening, but it never feels bogged down. It never feels like it's dragging. It just feels high energy and exciting. And the pacing that Sean Murphy achieves in his books is such a boon, such a talent. Love it so much. But are we ready to rate?
Yes, we should rate. I'll start us off here. I gave this a 9 out of 10 as well. I thought this was really, really good. I think this is one of, if not the best series going right now, if you take the 2 issues that have come out so far. It's so ridiculously good. Yeah, I'll give this a pull list rack. I don't think anybody's going to be disappointed if they pick up this issue. Even without the
first
issue.
And they give a good amount of context.
But yeah, so like, you'll enjoy it. Pick it up. It's really good.
Absolutely.
Katie.
We're going to fully twin here. 9 out of 10 and a pull list rec from me. What a good week to be a fan of Sean Gordon Murphy. Oh my goodness. But that's not all we're going to talk about this week. We are going to talk about the Fantastic Four. The Fantastic Quattro, if you will.
Today's back issue review, we're going to be diving into Fantastic Four by Waid and Wieringo. This is the first volume of their run. Mark Waid and Mike Wieringo take the reins of Fantastic Four and deliver some of the most daring and humorous adventures Marvel's first family has ever seen. Giant bugs, living equations, Johnny Storm, CEO. Exploding unstable molecules, the secret behind Yancey Street Gang, and watches the antics between the Thing and the Human Torch heat up like never before. Prepare to laugh and cheer at once. This is Fantastic Four 60 to 66. Plus, it included Avengers 400 because Waid and Wieringo worked together on that, but that had nothing to do with anything, so I don't think we'll get too into that one here. The writer is, of course, Mark Waid of World's Finest, JLA, Green Hornet, plenty of other books. We got 2 artists, Mike Wieringo, who's worked on The Flash, Spider-Man, and Robin, and then Mark Bugingham, who's worked on Fables, Spider-Man, and Batman Shadow of the Bat. And then the inks throughout are from Carl Kessel. Colors are by Paul Mounts and Matt Milla. Letters are by Albert Duchenne and Richard Starkings. So this is, I think, both of our first real foray into Fantastic Four.
Sure,
so I want to ask
it's
you,
even
Katie,
my first fake foray. I don't know that I've ever read a Fantastic Four anything.
Me neither.
Before.
I wasn't sure though if you read something here that. So our first foray into Fantastic Four. Well, I guess I've engaged with Fantastic Four stuff that isn't comic books.
That's fair.
We'll call those the fake forays.
Was weirdly obsessed with Fantastic Four: Rise of the Silver Surfer between the ages of like 9 and 12.
So we have fake forays. We'll consider this our first real foray. So I have 2 questions for you. Usually I just throw it with how'd you feel about the series, but I feel like I can separately ask how are you feeling about the Fantastic Four in addition to how are you feeling about this volume.
Yeah. So we had previously talked about the Fantastic Four when we mistakenly thought Greg Capullo was going to be doing art for them.
Yes.
He's just doing covers. And I had mentioned that Reed Richards gives me the ick. I think Reed Richards in a dad role is much better than the like impression I've gotten from Reed Richards in the past.
I'm so
So I
interested in
was
where
very
that impression
pleasantly
comes
surprised.
from when you
I
you
don't
have
know.
just admitted that you have now not read any like big arcs, or that you've not read any Fantastic Four.
I
So
don't
this is
know.
like
I mean, the thing is, I
constructed.
feel like as a comic
This is the
fan,
same thing you
no
have with Hal
matter.
Jordan, where you're like, I haven't really read anything with Hal Jordan, but Hal Jordan fucking sucks. It's like,
Here's the thing, it's a vibe check. I am always happy to be proven wrong on vibes. And I think part of it is also the, as, you know, a comic fan who has existed on the internet, my timelines on basically every social media are full of just like out of context panels,
hmm,
which, you know, isn't the best way to be introduced to a
no,
character.
not really.
But I think through just exposure to that, I started to be like, I don't like this Reed Richards fella. And there are
Uh,
some parts of him that I'm still not a huge fan of. I feel like he kind of gets to do it all in a way. Uh like I don't know that really because I think that what Waid does super well, and we've talked about Mark Waid 100 times here, is really grabbing individual characters and making them feel like individuals, and making them have they have so much room to be themselves within a group story. And I think for most of the Fantastic Four, for three of them, we see instances of them being uh, like they kind of shoot themselves in the foot at least once. Whether it's Ben with his anger and overreactions, Sue with her like guilt over raising Johnny wrong, Johnny with being like the oldest teenager you'll ever meet, according to Ben. I feel
it's
like with
funny because I think at
Reed,
one point they called him the oldest 4-year-old, and then later they switched it to the oldest 14-year-old. So
here's the thing,
maybe development.
it you know gets the same point across. I feel like with Reed, the things that could have been like, oh, this is Reed kind of doing too much, always end with Reed being the one who is like he was never wrong, you know? Like
I
even
think he was.
when
I think there was the bit where he was wrong with like the way that he was treating his son compared to
and
his daughter.
see, I was gonna jump onto that in that I feel like it was supposed to be framed that way, but through the entirety of the 6 issues, or we'll even just say the 4 issues because that's resolved at the end of that, I feel like
Yeah,
we constantly see Reed attending to his son. Like, we see him talking with his son, we see him like holding his son and being affectionate towards his son. And when he is like, no, Val is the priority right now, it's because they need to assess her for superpowers because she might have put both kids in danger. And so it just felt very. I didn't buy it that Reed was being this bad dad, which
yeah,
made
I
his
I
one
agree.
kind
There
of
wasn't
point of
enough
flaw.
foreshadow, but I want to point out that the point they were trying to make wasn't that he wasn't affectionate to the son, but that he like wasn't proud of the son comparatively. Like again, I think it could have been heavily foreshadowed, but I don't think like it's undermined by him because it was like more like he's protective of both of his kids. But I think the vibe of I would have liked to see more of him being like proud of Val to get that point across, but I don't think we ever saw him being proud of
Because she's
either of them.
literally a baby.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Well, no, because somebody like you think that she's like so smart or whatever. So like something of maybe like her showing power, or like something that would have been a little bit more interesting. Or he'd be like she got big brain or something. I don't know, some science experiment that
exactly.
says a
And
lot
like
of random
obviously
bullshit in this
children
book.
are not always, going to be rational thinkers in real life or in comics. So I understand where the son is coming from, but I feel like Reed handles him properly at every single turn. So it's like this thing that's supposed to kind of be a personal moment for Reed really just it doesn't feel like he was ever actually in the wrong the way that we feel with like Sue or
That's fair. The
heaven
other one I'll
forbid
throw
Johnny.
in because it didn't really happen, but it is focused on, especially because the first issue of this run is basically a recap, which I think was done really well, like
Me
told
too.
through this insertion of this marketing guy and him learning about them. I was like, now I get to learn about them through him.
Right.
It might be a really annoying issue if you were like reading the run as it came out. It's like, we're on issue 60 and now we're just recapping everything. I don't know. For
I mean,
me,
I
it
think
was
it
nice.
was a true recap. I would agree, but there was fun story in there as
Yeah.
each of the characters kind of has their moment, figuring out what they feel about this marketing guy.
Yeah. But anyway, the point I was trying to make is at that point they underline that like everything is Reed's fault, because he brought. So I think that is the idea of, and maybe if we have been more engaged with the Fantastic Four, we would feel that more, that like he had to make up for everything. So that's
maybe
the one thing I'll give
what
you.
strikes me is that the other kind of personal strife Reed has is when he brings this
I want
living
you
expression
to respond to me as soon as you hear
existence.
the
Like
next
his
word
son
I'm
did
gonna say.
something
Now.
to try to Like get the his word dad's was now?
Yeah.
attention, and
Yeah.
so this
Okay, we'll go
living
again. We'll go again.
you understand what I'm
Was
saying.
it modular? It was something
I
like
think
that.
it's
I think
modulus or something. Yeah,
modulus.
this like
Yes, it was
living
modulus.
mathematical
Really cool
thing,
villain, by the way.
right? Like really cool conceptually.
And the like full issue fight scene is one of the most interesting ones I think I've read. Like it was done so well, and being like, it's not going to be a traditional fight. Like this is what needs to happen, and Reed's going to go to this like weird other universe, and just the way that fight was structured was really, really cool.
And I think it again does something that we praise in team books, where it plays to each individual character's literal and less literal strengths. With Reed needing to go and do his computer side of things, with literally a building falling on Ben and him holding it up, with Sue protecting her children. Yeah, I think that it is a really cool villain, but the resolution of that villain is Reed. See, I didn't like the resolution of Reed being like, oh yeah, well there's no equals signs in this living expression, so it's not actually an equation, you big dummies. I'm gonna go, make an equal, which isn't a bad resolution if it didn't feel so, like, I don't know, it felt very out of nowhere, and like it
I don't know. Like I felt like the bit, and well, I thought it was cool because every bit of dialogue the character had was basically, I'm going to subtract this, I'm going to subtract this. So there was that hint of like it's just this never-ending expression. So when Reed was like, "Oh, we need to actually turn it into an equation," I thought that it actually was foreshadowed.
Again, I think that the concept of it is fine. I didn't like the execution of it.
No, you just said that you felt like it came out of nowhere, and I'm saying I don't think that's true. I think it was built too.
Like revelation. Like his thing is literally, you were telling me it was an equation. It's not an equation. Like why would you say it's an equation, you big dummies?
I mean, that's. I think that's a little false, right? He didn't call them dummy or say like you said this. He just said it's not an equation. It's a.
He did specifically say, you called it an equation. It's not an equation. Like. Okay. It was one of those things where I'm like, oh, maybe I don't like Reed Richards. So I think that it just kind of speaks to my greater problem with Reed in general. Again, he's not as bad as I thought he was going to be, but he was a little bit like do no wrong in my eyes in this series of issues. But that was like my only major complaint with it. Otherwise, I think that the characters were all like super well written. I think that they all felt like they had very real dynamics with each other. I liked that throughout the 6 issues of Fantastic Four that we got, it seemed like pretty much everyone got to literally pair off at some point. So you got to see everyone interact with everyone else. I don't know that we had a Johnny Reed bit.
No, I don't think we did. Well, there's the little bit with not them actually being together, but with Reed kind of like backtracking his little what do you want to call it, experiment, his test for these people that he was kind of setting up for this,
exactly, because there was that, and then there was also Johnny truly going to the mats for Reed when the marketing guy makes some vague allusion to Reed.
Oh, you know what though? There's the other like thing that Reed did wrong was like he lied to the entire family about like his reason for wanting fame.
That is.
And about the thing, he tells them that he wasn't invited, but he was, and like
I don't know that he told them that he wasn't invited. Did he? Like,
okay,
I believe
he doesn't tell them directly, but he sets up an encounter for them to think it. Yeah. He goes in and he yells at these people for not inviting him, despite the fact in front of his family, so that they think that he wasn't invited.
I don't think he, like, that's not a big deal, so we don't need to fact check or anything. I don't think he ever says he wasn't invited. I think they imply that or they say that to the marketing guy. Him keeping it a secret that he rejected them, same hat. but that still doesn't feel like a, I don't know, to the extent that the other characters had like a flaw on display, it felt like Reed got off scot-free. But they do all get to interact with each other in these little one-on-one situations. And I think that was super, super great, especially for someone pretty new to the Fantastic Four, because you really get to see what those relationships are like between the relatively small cast size of 4 people. You really understand what makes them a family.
Yeah, no, I agree. My overall feelings were more of like, weirdly, I felt like I like this, but it gave me a good indication that I'm not gonna like Fantastic Four in general, if that makes sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't feel like it's super my kind of book. Because it is, and I think it's cool in the sense that they're like, they're not superheroes. They're these like explorers, so they get to play in these realms. But I was just like,
Right.
I don't know if that's really going to be my speed of book, especially when it's
Mm-hmm.
not written by Mark Waid. You know, so yeah, I thought they did some cool stuff. I liked kind of both of the setups of villains, and it was both like things that they caused. You know, one being caused by Johnny and one being caused by Reed or Reed's son, or
Mm-hmm.
however you want to look at it. So that was kind of like a cool little contained bit of it. I weirdly, I feel like, and I was defending Reed a little bit more just because I wanted to be accurate with the content of the book. But I feel like the only character in this book I liked was Ben. Like, I feel like the other three,
You
I was like,
would.
you are all kind of annoying, and Ben's just like, you know, trying to do his best, and then they piss him off, and then he's got to, like, you know, wreck a city. And
As you do.
yeah, as you do. But, you know, no, he's a fun guy. I feel like you had mentioned seeing like Reed panels out of context. I feel like the panel that I always see out of context from this book is where Ben gets the like album and then goes and like raps it himself. Like, I see that on Reddit like every month. Like, that is just always on Reddit. But yeah, I think he was fun. Him getting the like shrunk down and fighting the giant bug.
Gosh, that was so
a
good.
lot of fun.
And
Yeah,
Reed
so I really
commenting that he has a little like helium voice, so he goes, "It's clapping time." That ended me. Like, thank you, Mark Waid. That is the type of writing I need.
Oh man, what was the oh yeah, it was the ender of the issue where Johnny gets like put in CEO, and then Sue is like, don't screw it up, and then it was coming
Immediately,
next, Johnny screws up for the next issue. I'm like, that's just such good like editorial humor, because it doesn't affect the story at all, because nothing like
right.
the characters had to say or do anything, which is a nice little fun editorial thing. So very entertaining. I enjoyed that a lot. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know that this team is really for me. I will say, I also thought Sue was very relatable at certain points, like her, particularly in the way that she related to Johnny. I was like, that feels relatable in like the way that you think of your sibling and stuff. I'm like, I understand the like, I want to help my little sibling and I want to give them responsibility, but they keep fucking it up and I have to watch out for them and keep making sure they don't. So I thought that was fairly relatable too. I thought her writing was a little more up and down, which I also felt about Mr. Fantastic's writing, and at points Johnny's writing, but I felt like hers were the most, where like she had like character swings where I was like, I don't know that you've been acting consistently.
That is
you
fair.
know.
I feel
but
like
I
she
liked
was
her a
kind
lot,
of.
I think, in the first story arc, and then the second story arc, I was like, you're a little bit more all over the place.
That's yeah. I found her older sister shtick to be a little tired. I think because of that second story arc, that little 2-issue thing where it really leans into being like, yeah, she feels super responsible for the way Johnny's acting. I'm like, Johnny's an adult, and she became responsible for him when they were both teens, and like her entire motivation here is very, it was very over the top, I think.
Yeah. That's why I said, like, it was like, I feel like I like the motivations a lot. Like, the oldest, like, I understand the oldest, like, I'm not where you are, like, he's an adult. It's like, if you are in that place, a lot of times, like, how many times in real life do you have to tell somebody that person's an adult? Stop, like, it just felt very
fair.
real. Like, it doesn't feel, you know, correct, but it feels very real. I feel like that's the, you know, just as a side note, I feel like that's how I felt about the character writing in this book a lot. I'm like, none of them are really, like, comic booky, like just good people, in the sense that like they're just always going to kind of do the right thing, or they're going to make a very like decisive story mistake and they'll be fixed. Like, they just kind of act like real people. Like, even the thing of Johnny like going way too far with pranks and then like not wanting to admit it, Ben, I'm like, that's just real, like, that, like, maybe not adults, but, like, that's how high schoolers act, like, in real life.
Right.
It's just like, oh, shit, I went way, way, way too far. So I felt very much like they felt like real people, but I agree with you that in that second story arc, Sue just started getting a little bit too... Johnny did, too, to some extent. Like, they just turned up his, like, 4-year-oldisms to, like, 9. So I felt like the two of them there, like, it just got a little bit too extremized. And then when we kept flashing back to, like, Reed and Ben, who were, like, just being much more normal, it was, like, especially evident.
They got the benefit also of doing, like, a silly little kind of alien caper as they hunted down, ostensibly, an interdimensional cockroach.
Which is just who ate all the chips. Don't forget, that's what incited it.
You're right.
You know, they were fine until he ate all the chips, and then it was like, sorry, buddy, you gotta go.
You gotta go.
Which is just a reasonable reaction.
I agree. But yeah, I think that when they were just kind of being a fun team and family is when the book really shined. And then when they tried to kind of, you know, button up and be a bit more serious, that's when I think I started to fall off a little bit.
I agree. I think that's why I said I like Ben, because I think Ben worked the best when he got serious, because his, like, problems and stuff felt more relatable and stuff. Like, I find much more reasonable, like, this guy who nobody accepts in society is gonna, like, lose his shit than these, like, you know, people who it's like, no, you might sell our fabric to the wrong person, you know? Like, like, Ben just felt much more, like, reasonable in overreacting to things because his whole life kind of sucks, you know?
I mean, they say that, but in the book they're constantly being like, hey, Ben, you think that nobody likes you? Guess what? Everybody likes you. These kids wrote a rap about you.
Yeah, but I think the vibe of that is, like, the other outsiders liked him, you know, like, this, like, little group of, you know, like, rebellious people liked him. And then there's, like, the dichotomy there, too, of, like, you see his, like, old mindset of when he was normal, like, he wants to shit on them, too. And he's like, oh, these are the only other people who actually like me.
Yeah.
Though they did give him a special seat at the movie theater, which is...
They sure did.
But yeah, anyway, I fully agree with you. I think that it works much better as, like, they're this family of adventurers going on adventures than when they try to actually do the superhero stuff. It doesn't land as well. And I think that's why I'm saying, like, I don't think I like the Fantastic Four if they don't lean into the superhero stuff well. I don't know if this adventuring family of, like, a lot of science is really for me. Because this is, like, maybe not, like, you know, very factual, but it's true science fiction. Like, they do try to focus on the science, not like, we're just going to be in space and stuff, but, like, Reed's constantly going to be, like, talking about equations and balancing stuff and that, you know. So yeah, not fully thinking it's my thing, but I do think that this was a solid and a fun volume.
And I am glad that I have had my Fantastic Four actual comic experience.
Agreed. Yeah. I think Waid was the way to go. Credit to Wieringo.
When is he
like
not?
His art quite a bit. I feel like in the first issue, I felt like he drew Johnny and Sue's faces really weird, but then it seemed to fix after that. I'm trying to remember the second artist's name now. Mark Bugingham. I thought his was solid, but I didn't quite like it as much.
Same.
I feel like I really liked his thing.
Noticed immediately when it changed over.
Yeah.
Because I was like, these are much more dynamic panels, but I didn't like the art as much.
Agreed. I really did like his thing, though. I thought his thing looked really cool, especially when he, like, got in that, like, shrink suit. Like, I was like, that looks cool. That's the other thing. I like the way that Mark Bugingham drew the tech a lot. Like, I think, like, the way that he was drawing the tech and, like, the ships and stuff was really, really cool. The way that there's a panel of Mr. Fantastic, like, shoving a hard hat onto Ben's head once Ben is small, and it is one of the just most awesome panels ever. So I just wanted to touch a little bit on how I felt about the varying artists, but I thought overall the art was very strong throughout.
Me too.
There were a couple, like, rendering things that I feel like I typically get a little bit in this time period of, like, the rendering gets a little bit weird sometimes, but overall thought the art was really solid. I thought it was a fun book. Like, that is my
But the question is, what would you rate it?
Yeah, if we want to go into ratings and then top 10s, I'm ready. I don't know if you wanted to hit anything else. Okay, I gave this my standard, I've been saying it's a fun book. I have a standard fun book rating. I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10, my fun book rating. Katie, how did you feel?
It was fun, but I don't know that my fun book rating goes quite as high. I need to really like the art for a fun book rating to go that high. I gave it a 6 out of 10,
Okay.
which puts my top 10 list at
Yes.
number 1, Noctera, Full Throttle Dark. Number 2, Above the New Teen Titans Volume 1. Number 3, Above Snakes. Number 4, Batman and Robin Volume 1. Number 5, Chicken Devil, Under Pressure. Tied for number 6, Radiant Black, Not So Secret Origin, and Paper Girls Volume 1. Number 8, Rain. Number 9, Dark Crisis, and I'm going to slot this in at number 10, bumping Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 off of my list.
Gotcha. My list is, on the top side, fairly similar to yours. Noctera, Volume 1 at number 1. Batman and Robin Volume 1 at number 2. New Teen Titans Volume 1 at number 3. Above Snakes at number 4. Dark Crisis at number 5. Radiant Black Volume 1 at number 6. Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1 at number 7. Savage Dragon Baptism of Fire Volume 1 at number 8. I'm slotting this in at number 9, right below Savage Dragon, because that was just a little bit more fun to me, because it was more my type of book. So this Fantastic Four by Waid and Wieringo slots in at 9, and then at 10 is Chicken Devil Volume 1, which bumps Rain off of the list.
R.I.P. But that is going to take us to the end of our back issue review here, which means it's time
for the Creator Corner.
And here we are in the Creator Corner, the part of the show where we sit back, relax, talk about being writers, talk about the comic industry. Today, I have a hyper-specific question for you about writing. It ties in a bit to both our polls and our back issue review. Today, I'm going to talk about something that I think we both probably have feelings on, and that is writing siblings in your stories.
I think I've only, in a major context, written two major pairs of siblings. There were siblings in Janitor Hero that we never actually got to in the released content, but I forgot about that. So I've written two major siblings.
There you go. And at the very least, we have read plenty of sibling stuff, even just this week with both Zorro and Fantastic Four. We had siblings going on. And we both have siblings. Hi, Sarah.
Lies.
Say hello to your sibling.
No, I refuse.
Horrifying. Hi, Jay's sister's fiance.
She's not going to watch this. So.
That's why I said hi to her fiance, who might.
He might, yes. Connor might. Shout out to my brother-in-law, Connor. He might actually watch.
All right, but writing siblings in fiction, it comes up quite a bit. I feel like it gets memed on a lot on the internet of like, oh, look at how badly these siblings are written. Or like, look at how good these siblings are. This is a real sibling.
Because, like, how many times in, like, they'll, like, say brother and sister. It's like, nobody in real life ever says the word brother or sister, like, in context.
At the very least, not in that way. Like, when I message my sister, I will say sister with a bunch of E's. Or, like, sestra. Like, you don't talk to your sibling. You don't address them as sister or brother.
Yeah. It's like my little cousin who insists on, like, calling everybody cousin their first name instead of just their name. Because, like, I guess they got used to doing that for, like, aunts and uncles and figured it worked that way for cousins, too. But, anyway.
I suppose. But it's something that people notice in bad writing a lot of the time, and it's something people notice in really good writing a lot of the time. So what do you think is at least an element of this secret sauce to write siblings well?
I think the first thing is understanding that, like, a sibling relationship doesn't mean anything, really.
Mm-hmm.
Like mean something, in, like, but I mean, like, a sibling relationship doesn't have a definition of this is the way siblings act. Like, there is no this is the way siblings act. So addressing that is, like, the first thing of, like, there's siblings that love each other, there's siblings that can't stand each other, there's siblings that are jealous of each other, there's siblings that are as close as any two human beings will ever be. And everything in between, and, like, the layered of that, of, like, maybe they're jealous but they still love each other, or, like, we talked about it in Fantastic Four, like, the guilt in, like, raising, because that's another angle of the siblings, of sometimes they raise each other. Actually, the main sibling relationship I was thinking about writing had kind of a similar dynamic, with one of them essentially raising the other once the parents were out of the picture. So I think understanding the nuance and complexities of siblings in like there's a baseline of what siblings means, which is that,
Mhm.
well, I mean, if we're talking generally, it could mean literally nothing if you
Right.
meet them like 20 years later. But if we're talking siblings that grew up together, there's that baseline of you grew up in the same household, you have some shared experiences in terms of your
Mhm.
upbringing, though there are instances in which it can be a very different upbringing,
Yeah.
and you can play with that too. So like understanding the level to which siblings means very little in terms of like you have to write them X way.
Right. I think with a lot of fictional siblings, it becomes uh, there are certain things that you shouldn't do, like you were saying with the like weirdly kind of formal nicknames. Like these are people who theoretically, and we're talking about kind of stereotypical sibling dynamic where you want them to feel like they grew up together in your book, where you see these
I figured,
people
but I threw in the little
every day.
note that like there
Oh
could
yeah,
be
for sure.
siblings.
Like obviously
Yeah.
siblings can look all sorts of different ways. And I mean one of our favorite pairs of siblings, Val and Emery, obviously aren't blood related. They were both adopted. And
Still same upbringing though,
exactly,
so
exactly.
works
So
that
like
way. Yeah.
siblings can look all different ways, but when looking at people who grew up together in the same house, there are going to be those like there's that sense of over familiarity. Like you I rarely call my sister by her name, and in I've mentioned the horror book that I'm writing a couple times that is a pair of siblings, um, and a dog. Like it's never. There's always an expectation of like familiarity. Like you're not gonna make small talk with your sibling, right? You're gonna uh, be casual, you're going to be comfortable for the most part. So having that kind of stilted dialogue when you're trying to convey these people who theoretically have known each other their entire lives and have been through ups and downs together, uh, I think that's a big pitfall as well, as making
Yeah.
things feel formal.
I feel like there's a lot more in terms of writing siblings of like there's things not to do in terms more of like there are things to do. Like I don't think there's anything you have to do in any given
Exactly.
sibling relationship, but there are those things you don't do. One of them being having them refer to each other in like a name sense as sister and brother. Like that's not a thing that 99% of siblings are going to do, so that's the one. And then like you said, having like that stilted dialogue, again, there's circumstances in which I think you could use to your advantage that it feels
Mhm.
weird. Like maybe they grew up together, but now you're doing something to jump to like, oh, they haven't seen each other for like 10
Yeah.
years and, whatever. So like there's places for all of that. But yeah, it's definitely something in which I think people get a little bit like boxy with it.
Mhm.
In like, it's like, I'm writing siblings. So this is siblings, they are family. And thus a lot of times, and this is what I hate about, a lot of times siblings can be written as like, significant others light. Like people like use the same
Right.
rules that they write significant others with, but just like minus the physical intimacy,
Mhm.
and that comes across really weird. So yeah, I think it's really just approach it. I think a much better way to approach it is more like a parent kid relationship than I'd say somewhere between, find the balance between friendship and parent kid relationship, and that
Mhm.
is a good sweet spot for where you begin your a good sibling relationship. We're
Right.
talking about a good sibling relationship compared to a bad one, but I think that's a good place to start with it, especially if there's a significant age difference of at least like 5-6 years.
Mhm.
Siblings that are very close in age, I would lead into either a more best friendy relationship or a more rivalry relationship. Like those are the two options I think of siblings that are very close in age, and I think a big part of that is also then going to be based on the if there's a gender difference or not, because I think that sometimes impacts the relationship as
Mhm.
well. I think especially like twin siblings are much
I
more
was gonna
likely to be
say,
like
can't
the
get
close
much closer
bond
than that.
versus the rival. Yeah, so
And we get so much like very stereotypical twin sibling things in fiction. Like you have your Fred and Georges from Harry Potter, where they're just the same person, and then you have your like evil twin dynamic of being completely opposite people. And as someone who's very familiar with twins, hi Mom and Aunt Joe, there is that sense of they're distinct people. Like they might have similar mannerisms, they might even talk the same sometimes, but they're never, because they're kind of raised in the same way. You're never really, you never want to clump your siblings together as one person. That I think
I feel
is
like we
also
only
a
get the
big
two
pitfall.
extremes with twins, where it's either give them complete opposite personalities, where one is like, you know, if it's a guy, it's like either okay, one's a typical jock and one's a nerd, and if it's a girl, it's like, oh, one is, you know, your typical feminine, you know, like
And the
popular
other is a
girl, and the
nerd.
other one's. I would say sometimes the other is also an athlete. Like sometimes they do that with
Fair
girls,
enough,
like the one's the athlete, and then the one's the more typical feminine,
Mhm.
you know, thing. So I feel like those are the pitfalls you get in twins. Either they're the exact same person, or they're a extreme ends of the spectrum. It's like,
Yeah, and I
you can
think that
play with more
the
nuance
kind
than
of, like you were saying, for a starting point with writing siblings is at the end of the day they are two different characters, and
yes,
making sure that they aren't defined by their siblinghood. They can be motivated by it, like what we saw with Val and Emery in Noctera. Val is incredibly motivated by her role as Emery's older sister, um, but that doesn't define her character. Like, she has so many traits outside of that, and then those traits are applied to the sibling relationship. So don't just use siblings as shorthand. They're real people.
fully agree. Yeah, maybe I was thinking too much to start with the baseline assumption that people would create characters individually and then build the relationship.
Here's
Do
the thing,
that.
yeah, I think that it is a pitfall for siblings where it's like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is my main character's
super fair.
sister, and her only trait is that she's our main character's sister.
Yeah.
But I think that's going to take us to an end on our creator corner today.
Yeah.
A bit of a behemoth of an episode here. Hopefully we kept it a little shorter. But next week we have plenty of exciting stuff going on too. Jay, what are we going to be pulling?
So, for whatever reason, we only had one poll on our list for next week in terms of floppies. So we will be reviewing Green Arrow #9, and we decided because we don't have much going on that we will also review the trade that is coming out from Mad Cave of Hound Volume 1.
Yeah, so technically kind of a pull list track.
Yeah, it's a pull list, right? It's on the poll. You can pull that probably. I think.
Yeah,
I don't know. I've never gotten a trade at my local store, but anyway, that is a poll, not our back issue review. So, Katie, why don't you tell us what our back issue review is going to be?
Yes, we'll have a nice normal back issue review. Something that I've been super duper enjoying, and I don't believe you've read, but I think you should. Batman, Superman, World's Finest, Volume 1. The Devil Neza. Yeah. You have not been reading it. We love Mark Waid so much.
For a long time.
That's
but it's
kind
like
of
one
what
of
I
those things
figured.
when you get really far behind on a series, and then it's like such a task to try to jump into it.
It really is, especially when it's just still going. And I'm thrilled that it's still going. But maybe this will help start to catch you up here.
Hopefully.
So that's 1 through 5 of Mark Waid and Dan Mora's 2023 series? 2022? One of the two.
I don't know. You'd know better than I would. But
that's what you got to look forward to.
That is everything that we have for you guys today. Join us next Wednesday for, more comic book content. We'll see you all next week. Comic Geeks. Sometimes you hurt. All people hurt sometimes. Have you not banged your knee on anything ever?
Never. I'm incredibly coordinated.
No.